All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call us to order. I hate to interrupt a good discussion. But we are at the top now. Okay, did everyone enjoy lunch? Yes. Awesome. Thanks to Plankton for providing the food, and a big thank you to Mark Molina and Armani Auto Group for sponsoring the lunch today. Where's Mark? Where's Mark? Everyone go take a trip down to Armani and tell him you missed him at the program today, but thank you for the food. Well, I'm Paige Walters. I'm our Director of Economic Development and Advocacy here at the Chamber, and I'm really excited to welcome you all to the final Small Business Solutions Hub program of 2023. Somehow we made it to December, headed into 2024. This program was launched a year ago. One of our Springfield Chamber strategic priorities under our Economic Development and Advocacy is to champion initiatives centered on the Chamber's Innovation Hub vision that stimulates business endeavors and enhances regional entrepreneurial ecosystems. So with that vision in mind, and through the partnership of our title sponsor, Kaiser Permanente, the Chamber launched our Small Business Solutions Hub program in 2022. The digital hub on our website, live 24/7, features organizations who are offering professional services, advising, products, and more to help small businesses succeed. I know a few of them are in the room today. I've got Eric Dreyer Goldman from Ask Eric IT. Got IT needs, let's go see him. WaFd Bank, we're going to hear from them a little later. There's a couple of you in the room. Raise your hands. We are. Kaiser Permanente, again, our title sponsor, and we've got a great contingent joining us online from Kaiser. Colleen's here in the room today. Thank you guys for being here. Other sponsors of the hub are Belleville Property Restoration, Chambers Construction, Kirshner Hunter, and Oregon Community Credit Union. Go talk to Marianne if you want to get your business listed there under the hub. In addition to our digital hub that's on our website, we hold quarterly educational programs around topics like HR regulatory compliance, employee recruitment, search engine optimization, social media marketing, things that are really important for our small business community to succeed. Today, we're hoping to leave you with some tangible takeaways for growing your business through access to capital. These programs offer an opportunity for our small business community, some of you are in the room today, to partner with our resource providers, and again, some of you are in the room today, to really build out your networks. A big thank you to all the sponsors of the Small Business Solutions Hub who make the programs possible. Before I introduce today's speakers, I do want to offer a few minutes of time for our title sponsor, Kaiser Permanente, to share about their organization and share a little bit about why supporting small businesses is a key priority for them. So joining us from Kaiser virtually today, I'm really excited to introduce Matthew Woodburn, Small Group Sales Manager for KP&W. Matthew's been with Kaiser Permanente for 10 years and has been in the industry for 19. Matthew's personal health journey and his passion for helping others is what brought him to Kaiser Permanente. Matthew's free time is spent with his husband and family, singing with his choir, and devoting time to community-based nonprofit service work. Matthew, you should be able to unmute and join us virtually.
Thanks, Paige. My name is Matthew, as Paige mentioned, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. I really miss spending time in Springfield. I try to get it down there occasionally. I have family down there, and I did also go to school and lived in Springfield for some time. Our local team, as you know, provides primary and family care to members across Lane County. And as part of Kaiser Permanente team, we're committed to supporting the overall health of the area, and that includes economic opportunities for growth and small businesses that contribute to the thriving community that you have. As a nonprofit organization, Kaiser Permanente also invests in local programs working to address social health issues. And I'm actually excited to share a new program grant. We recently provided shelter care for medical respite services. This program will focus on providing short-term housing and medical care for people who are too ill or frail to recover from an illness or injury on the streets, but not ill enough to be in the hospital. We're really proud of our partnership with Shelter Care and the opportunity to continue to support their work in Lane County. I really appreciate your time today and the work that you do. I know you'll find great tools and resources through today's Solutions Hub, and I want to thank the Chamber for bringing these opportunities to the community. Kaiser Permanente is proud to partner with the Chamber on this work, and I hope to join you next time in person, and I hope you enjoyed today. Thanks so much. I'll turn it back over to Paige.
Thank you, Matthew, and thanks for all the work that Kaiser does really in the community and to support the chambers. We see you everywhere. We really appreciate the work that you do. All right, today's program, we're tackling the topic of access to capital through traditional lending sources. We've got two presentations today, one of which is going to focus on that traditional lending piece and the other honing in on small business administration, SBA lending. So first up, it's my pleasure to introduce Scott Kuvaas, with Commercial Banking Relationship Manager with WaFd Bank. Scott's a native Oregonian and a graduate of U of O with over 5 years of commercial banking experience supporting customers throughout the Willamette Valley. With a background in credit underwriting over the last few years, he's worked with businesses of all sizes and real estate investors alike to accomplish their goals. Scott, thank you for joining us today.
How's it going, everyone? So yeah, I'm Scott Kuvaas. I'm with WaFd Bank on our commercial lending team here in Eugene. Like Paige mentioned, I've been in commercial banking about 7 years now, and the last 5 I've spent with WaFd Bank. So I am here to share just kind of a general overview of business lending, kind of traditional sources of financing that you could be looking for your business. So I'm going to talk about some types of loans, just kind of a basic overview of a few different types that we see commonly. Things you can maybe be considering when choosing a lender, and then times that you might be looking for funding. So to start, a few types of loans I'm going to hit on today. Operating line of credit.
It was just a minute, Scott,
okay.
sorry.
Technical difficulties.
Let us cast withers in audience here. Okay.
Perfect. Yep. So I'm going to touch on just a few different types of loans today. Operating lines of credit, equipment loans, owner-occupied real estate, and investor real estate. So these are 4 common types of real estate or loans that we might be looking at on our business banking, commercial banking teams. There's a few things that are really common across all types of loans that we're going to be looking at. And so when a business comes to us for a loan, some things that are common across all loan types are going to be, we're going to want to see a business has been in business for at least 2 years. So typically that's documented with, we're going to want to review a couple, 2, ideally 3 years of tax returns for your business, as well as current income statement and balance sheet for the current fiscal year. This is going to be able to give us a nice history of your business's performance. We'll be able to ask some questions to you based on that when we do our financial review. So for any type of loan, that's kind of the basis that we're going to want to review. On top of that, any type of business loan that we're going to do, we're typically going to require a personal guarantee from owners over 20% of the business. This is really important as it just demonstrates that the owners of a business are willing to support their business in a time where maybe the business has a bad year. This personal guarantee is an agreement with us and the owner that they would step in and support their business, to make the loan whole. On top of that, really any type of loan, there's going to be some level of ongoing monitoring that the bank's going to be doing. So whether that's reviewing your business's financials annually to just kind of make sure everything is still in good order. Depending on the loan type, it might be more frequent, and I'll kind of get into that here. So the first loan type that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit more would be an operating line of credit. So this is really common. Lots of businesses, especially as they're growing, utilize an operating line of credit for some of those short-term cash flow shortages that they might have. So this might be a situation where you need to be able to purchase more inventory and you just don't have the cash on hand to be able to purchase that inventory, allowing you to turn it and make generate sales. Maybe that you want to be able to pay your suppliers a little bit more timely, and so you want to have access to this line of credit to pay quickly and take advantage of trade discounts. It could also be just situations where maybe your business you have large payments coming in at the end of the month, but you need to make your bi-monthly payroll, and so you might need to utilize your line of credit in the short term and then pay it down towards the end of the month when these payments come in. So it's operating line of credit is all about access to short-term working capital for your business. So the collateral that the bank's gonna take in this instance would be typically an all assets filing on your business. So in the event that things went south and the bank needed to be made whole, they would have your business's assets as collateral until they, were able to make themselves whole on that loan. But really what a bank's going to be focused on with an operating line of credit is going to be your business's accounts receivable, inventory, potentially your equipment. Those are the things that we're really going to be focused on, because those are the things that can be turned into cash quickly and to pay off that line.
So do you discount those?
What was that?
On the accounts receivable?
Yes. So most banks are going to have different levels that they're going to want to discount. So say you have, and what he means by that is if you have $100,000 in accounts receivable, a bank might be willing to lend 75% against those. So maybe they'd have a $75,000 line if your normal accounts receivable are $100,000. That's, but all banks are going to be kind of different thresholds. So some characteristics of the line of credit: it's a revolving loan. So it can be paid down and then you can draw against it, and then it can be paid down again, and that can just continue to flow. But with lines of credit, because they are a short-term financing solution, banks typically like to see that those are paid down at least once a year. And so, a bank might have a requirement that you have that paid down to zero for 30, 60, 90 days consecutively during the year, because it's really not meant to be used to finance like long-term assets. It's not meant to be used to finance real estate, things like that. The interest rates are going to be, the payments are going to be interest-only payments typically. So whatever the balance is in a given month, and the interest is charged against it, all you have to do is make interest payments. It's similar to kind of like a credit card in that sense, where you're not required to make principal payments monthly, just interest typically. And then as far as so operating lines of credit, so on the commercial side of the bank, we typically do like 1 or 2 year terms on those. And so every year or two, it's going to be a maturity on that line, and it needs to be renewed in order to be able to be used going forward. As opposed to like a lot of real estate loans are longer terms before you have to renew those or they come due. And it's important to know that operating lines of credit, so most banks will have some sort of streamlined operating line of credit program. So for any loans like maybe under 100,000 or under 50,000, a lot of banks will have like a streamlined product that you can. It can either be like it's an unsecured facility where it doesn't require the bank to take collateral of business, or maybe it's a product that they can do in a week or two and get in place for you in a week or two, so long as your business financials look okay. So a lot of banks will have a more streamlined product for these lines of credit, as opposed to kind of that more standard commercial line of credit that takes 30 to 60 days to get into place. So the next loan I want to talk about is equipment loans. These are more straightforward. These are going to be loans to buy equipment for your business. This is a more traditional, the bank takes collateral, that specific equipment you're financing, and it's typically going to be like a 5 to 7 year loan that they're going to do on that collateral, depending on what the collateral is. It is important to note though that a lot of banks do have like a specified equipment finance division. Banks and financial institutions, I should say, have an equipment finance division where they might be able to offer more aggressive terms, like 100% financing for equipment, because they specialize in understand, equipment useful life, that type of thing. Whereas some financial institutions don't have that, traditional equipment finance group, and in that case, they usually are only able to do like 75% loans. They require a large down payment on that equipment.
So do you require a third party, say, evaluation or appraisal on that equipment?
Typically, depending on the equipment though. So if it's a really, common piece of equipment, and like if your lender has like an equipment finance group that is really comfortable with the piece of equipment, they might be able to just take the invoice for the
internal or external that does that evaluation.
Some financial institutions have it internal, but some need to go external if they don't have the experts in-house to be able to do that.
Okay.
So ongoing monitoring for an equipment loan is typically just reviewing the business annually, reviewing the business financials. There's not typically too much ongoing monitoring for that equipment. Whereas, like with a line of credit, I don't think I mentioned this, there could be monitoring that's, quarterly or monthly, monitoring your inventory, your accounts receivable to make sure that, nothing has changed too drastically. So owner-occupied real estate. So this is a situation that a lot of businesses find themselves in, where maybe they've been renting their space for a long time, and they finally get to a spot where they're like, okay, I've outgrown my space. What are my options for for moving? Do I want to move somewhere else that's larger and rent? Do I want to maybe buy a building and then occupy that building, and then now instead of paying rent to a third party, I either pay rent to my owners or whatever the case may be. So owner-occupied real estate is where a business, the owners of a business or the business itself purchase a space to occupy at least 50% of. And in doing so, so I'm going to talk about owner-occupied real estate and next investor real estate. The large difference between the two is that owner-occupied real estate, the bank is really going to be focused, or the lending institution is going to be very focused on analyzing the business and its ability to, it's the business cash flow's ability to support that loan payment. Whereas with investor real estate, it's much different, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But so I put here the primary repayment. I should probably do this. That'll be helpful. Sorry. So as you see here, so the primary repayment source is going to be the business cash flow in this sense. The collateral is going to be the real estate acquired. But again, when a bank is underwriting this type of loan, they're going to be really focused on, hey, can this business's cash flow support the loan payment that we're going to be placing either on them or on the buyer. So these are going to be a term loan in the commercial and the business real estate loan space, as opposed to like a residential mortgage. These loan terms are going to be more, as opposed to like a 30-year fixed mortgage that you might be familiar with. A business or a commercial real estate loan is going to be maybe like a 20 to 30-year amortized loan, but there's going to be a much shorter term on that loan where the loan comes due and has to be reevaluated. And so that's going to be up to like maybe a 10-year term on that loan, where it gets reevaluated by the bank. And then the client at that time also has the ability to reevaluate and say, hey, do I need a larger loan? Should I be looking at that? Do I want to refinance this with a different lender? What do I want to do? And so they have opportunity to kind of renegotiate the terms of that loan at that time. So these are going to be more traditional principal and interest payments. The underwriting or the due diligence process on real estate loans is longer than on the operating line of credit I talked about earlier, and honestly on equipment as well, because it typically requires a full appraisal, which can take anywhere, a commercial appraisal can take anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks. There's also going to be environmental due diligence that the lender will want to do to make sure there's no environmental risks as well. So again, the 60 to 90 days of due diligence is really important because if you're trying to make this decision as a business of whether you're going to just continue to rent where you're currently at, or you're going to want to buy a building, you'd want to make sure you give yourself ample time to be able to, find the right building, acquire the building, and then also make any necessary improvements you need, but while being able to still operate your business this entire time. The ongoing monitoring for a real estate loan like this is going to be typically annual review of financials of the business. And so, and typically the bank will also have what's called a covenant placed on these loans, where they're going to be measuring your business's, it's typically called a debt service coverage covenant, and that's measuring your business's cash flow and its ability to support the loan payment. And there's usually a ratio tied to that, and in your loan documents it specifies how that's calculated. But the lender's going to be looking at that once a year, typically, in order to be able to make sure that your business can still support the loan.
So what ratio are you looking for? You probably guessed.
It depends. It depends, but typically, we would want to see that the business can support the payment at like a 1.25 to 1 ratio. But it depends on the type of building. It depends on the business itself and other factors.
Scott?
Yep.
Will this combo with a 1031 exchange?
That on the.
You don't have much demand for it otherwise?
No, we don't. Yeah.
It could, I think.
Yeah.
Sell commercial property, buy commercial property, and use this loan.
So yes, you could use a 1031 exchange for sure, if you had exchange funds, but it has to be the same ownership, right? Yes. Okay, so on the flip side, we have investor real estate, and this is going to be a little bit different in the sense that this is someone trying to buy real estate that's going to have a third-party tenant or tenants in the space. And so while the owner-occupied real estate loan, the repayment is driven by the business cash flow that the owners also own, this is going to be rents derived from those leases in place with investors, with tenants. And so the bank's going to be a lot more focused on who the tenants are, how long the leases are in place, and then the expected ongoing performance of that property itself, as opposed to the business that's occupying the space. But again, this is going to be that same loan structure where there's going to be up to a 10-year term on the loan with a longer amortization. And then ongoing review is going to be like a debt service coverage covenant for the property itself, typically. So kind of jumping into how to choose a lender. And so, there we go. Okay, so not all lenders are the same. I'm sure a lot of you know this, but there's a lot more factors than just maybe the size of the lender that can kind of come into play. And so, lots of folks are aware that there's, national banks like the Chase Banks of the world. There's regional banks like WaFd Bank, Umpqua Bank. There's more local lenders like credit unions, like Summit Bank, that are more focused on like one state or something. But there's a lot more factors that you should consider when you're considering a lender. So that would be things like getting to know the local team that you're going to be working with. Because that's largely important, getting to know what strengths the team has locally, but also what strengths the bank has, or the lender has. So that would be things like I kind of mentioned earlier, some lenders might have like an equipment finance division. So if you know that your bank's going to be purchasing a lot of equipment over the years, then it'd be really important for you to find a lender that has an equipment finance group that's going to be able to get you the best terms when you're trying to acquire equipment. It's also important for your business to, if you're a cash-heavy business, you're going to be making a lot of trips to the branches to know, where your closest branch is. Maybe get to know the branch team, and then, especially, and then if you're going to be using things like the online banking services, maybe get a demo of the online platform so that you can really understand, how that works. Is it going to be up to your standards and accomplish everything that you're going to need it for? Here. And then when do you need funding? So this is kind of a nuanced question, and it's really specific to your business. But there are a couple of times that are really common when folks do need financing. So project-specific financing. So this would be kind of like I mentioned earlier. Do you want to buy a new space to house your business? If so, you want to start to identify how much cash am I going to need for a down payment? What's my monthly payment going to look like when I do that? How many other improvements might I need to make? It also might be something where you're in a growth mode for your business and you need to buy a large piece of equipment that is going to help take your business to the next level. Well, that would be project-specific financing, and you'd be really focused on what equipment terms can I get. The other types of times when it might be important to get financing would be if your business is growing. So if your business is growing rapidly and you're seeing there's a lot of demand for your product and you need to make more, but you just don't have the cash on hand to buy the inventory you need, that would be a time where you might want to look at like a line of credit where you could have access to short-term capital that could help grow your business and kind of exponentially, grow your sales. It also might just be times where you're starting to see your payables extending out longer and it's taking you a little bit longer to pay your suppliers, and you might want to be able to pay them quicker to take advantage of trade discounts. That might be another time when you'd be, maybe looking for a line of credit. So a couple of different scenarios there, but there's a lot more nuance that can go on there, and so it really is dependent on you and your business. And if you just are starting to see challenges, that's the time where, kind of per these best practices here, it's maybe just seek advice. So Small Business Development Center is a great place to go. They have professionals that have been through some of these cycles, and you can get some great advice from them as far as hey, is this the right time that I should go out and look for financing? What type of financing should I be looking for? Suggestions on what type of lender I should be. Should I look with a credit union or a bank? What size bank? Those are all things that they might be able to help you with. And then the other best practice I put here that I think is very important is to maintain projections. So especially as your business is in a growth mode, and even more often when your business is growing, maintaining projections is very important because you never know when that time is going to come that you need to, go for financing. And this will also speak to Tanner's point on SBA loans, but having the projections in place so that you can, one, identify when you might be needing financing in the future, when you might have those cash flow shortfalls, is very important. But then two, having those on hand so that when you're ready to go get financing, you're able to kind of plead your case with a lender of hey, here's why I'm going to need financing. Here's where we're headed. And that's also, helps tell the story with your historical financials that they're going to want to review. So that is everything that I have. If there are any questions now, happy to take them. And then also at the end after Tanner's presentation, I'm available as well. So anything?
All right. Okay, just out of curiosity, who here is a small business that's currently renting space? Who owns their space? Both. You got both. No, it's great. Scott, thank you for the presentation. I want to give a quick shout out to Roger back there with the SBDC because you got to mention if anyone does want to talk to the SBDC. Roger's here at the chamber a couple times a month actually doing advising, that you can reach out to him.
Every second and fourth Thursdays, I'm at the chamber.
You can find him right here. If you have questions and just want to ask a banker, I guarantee you can find one at any of our chamber events. Or come to the Small Business Solutions Hub or check out our digital page and find a contact there. So Scott, thank you. Next, we're excited to welcome up Tanner Nelson, VP and SBA Program Advisor with Summit Bank. Tanner graduated magna cum laude from Northwest Christian University, local, with a degree in accounting and a minor in business administration in December of 2017. While at NCU, he played 3 years of soccer and was a 2-time academic All-American. Tanner currently sits on the Small Lender West Committee for the National Association of Government Guaranteed Lenders, the NAGL. Tanner enjoys working with SBA clients from a myriad of different industries. His favorite aspect of work in SBA is watching as clients grow their businesses from either starting their own business venture, purchasing an existing business, or purchasing real estate to help their business expand. Tanner, welcome.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Quick question before I even get started. Who has never heard of SBA lending? Because I never heard of it until I joined the bank. So just out of curiosity. Everyone's heard about it? Awesome. Sweet. So yeah, just a little bit about me. I joined the bank 6 years ago. I did my internship with the commercial lending team, and then had another semester of school, went back to school. They hired me back after. Apparently I did something right. So yeah, I've been with the bank for 6 years, joined the SBA team for 6 years now. We just had our first daughter, Kyla. She's 5 months old. She's a monster. My wife is a PT in town. We lived in Washington for a bit, worked from home that whole time during COVID pretty much, from my apartment. Here's the rest of the team. In the top right is Ashley Horner. She started the SBA department 8 years ago. It was just her, and now we're a team of 7. And the bottom right is Kyle Cook. He's an underwriter. Chase in the middle and Callan in the middle are both underwriters as well. Takia in the bottom left is our operations specialist, so takes care of a lot of the operational stuff. And then in the top left is Melanie Elmore. She's also a lender on the team. A little bit about the team. This past year for SBA financing for the state, we were 3rd in the state in dollars funded. We did 32 million, and that's for the government fiscal year. So that's October through September of this past year. The only 2 ahead of us were Live Oak, which is the #1 lender in the country, and then Umpqua, who has a bigger footprint than Summit Bank does. Okay, just a quick overview of what I'm going to cover. Basically, why would you use SBA financing and what is SBA financing? What a successful loan application looks like, how SBA lending can be beneficial for your business, as well as how we can make the process quick and efficient. And then here's a few large companies now that utilize SBA financing at one point. to help grow their business. FedEx, Columbia, and Uncle Phil, when he started Nike way back, used SBA financing to help grow. Okay, so why use SBA financing? What is SBA financing? To start, SBA financing is a government guaranteed loan that a bank does to a business. There's two major programs. The 7A, which is what I deal with specifically, you can pretty much do anything you want to do with a commercial loan. So like working capital, inventory, buy real estate, buy a business, buy into a business, start your own business, TIs, whatever. The other major program is the 504. It's typically geared towards commercial real estate. That's owner occupied and long-term fixed assets. Not really going to cover that too much in this, but if you guys have questions about it, I know enough to be dangerous. Can hopefully answer your questions. So why you would want to use SBA financing? It's to help businesses, achieve growth that they wouldn't get with a conventional loan. Or you're going to have a lot of growth, but there's not the historical financials there to back it up. So one example I can think of is a client we helped in Portland. They're a food distributor. They got a big contract with Big Minimums to be their supplier. However, they didn't have the historical performance to justify putting in a 4,000 square foot cooler and freezer space in their building that they just bought. So we helped them by underwriting projections to help them grow their business. And this year, it was their first full year with that space, and it's been awesome for them. They're doing great. So that's kind of the purpose of it. Basically, how SBA financing works is you work with the lender, Summit Bank, US Bank, a credit union, whoever, and the bank approves the loan on their side, and then they go to the SBA, the federal government, to get them to issue the guarantee that helps not secure the loan per se, but if the loan goes bad, the bank goes to the SBA and shows them that they followed all the 400 pages of rules. Yep, exactly. Goes to the federal government, like, hey, we followed the rules, pay us that guaranteed percentage of the loan. The government checks it, it goes, yes, you did, here's your check, and then the bank steps out of it, and then the borrower would work with the federal government to pay back the full balance. That's worst case scenario. Best case is you pay off the loan in time or early, and you go on your merry way. So the guarantee helps mitigate the risk of a loan that the business hasn't historically met their projections or need. Trying to think here. Yeah, so the guarantee helps mitigate some risk if it's either not fully secured or a loan that you wouldn't do conventionally. The SBA doesn't encourage banks to do bad loans. It's to help make a loan possible that wouldn't be possible without the guarantee. So some quick highlights of the 7A program. The max available loan you can do is $5 million. The lender gets an 85% guarantee on loans that are less, $150,000 or less. 75% if the loan's over $150,000. Sorry, the M's, that's 1,000 in our banker terms. I know some people have seen it and be like, oh, that's $1 million. No, it's it's 1,000. There is a guarantee fee which is associated with the loan. That's a fee that gets paid straight to the federal government to use the program. This year, for loans under $1 million, there is no fee, which is really great. For loans between $1 million and $2 million, it's 1.45% of the guaranteed portion of the loan up to $1 million. Basically, it's like a kind of like a percentage of the loan, roughly 1.7% for loans between $1 million and $2 million, and then for loans over $2 million, it's about 3.75. The max term you can do for most uses, like working capital, equipment, business acquisitions, is 10 years. Real estate, you can do 25 years. So loan terms, SBA requires them to be fully amortizing. So if it's a 10-year term, it's a 10-year amortization. So you can't have a balloon payment. SBA doesn't allow for it. And loans don't need to be fully secured, which is great. That's kind of the whole purpose of the SBA program, because if someone's buying a business, typically you're buying the cash flow of the business. You're buying the assets usually, but the assets might not make up the $1 million purchase price. So that's where the not being fully secured that's the purpose of the SBA program, really. So there's some flexibility, even though it is a government program, we do find ways to be flexible. Terms of the SBA programs provide some flexibility in what you want to do, give you longer maturity than what a conventional term or a conventional loan might be. There's usually a lower equity requirement. And then the collateral, again, it's not a reason for decline. So the loan cannot be fully secured and we can totally do it. It's very typical that we do loans that aren't fully secured. I'd say 9 times out of 10. So here's a quick example of the benefits of doing an SBA loan. This is for a purchase of equipment. Your equity injection would be roughly 10%, whereas a conventional loan might be closer to 20%. The rate, it is tied to prime and it would adjust annually, so it's not a fixed rate. And it is typically higher because it is a riskier loan, so they're priced accordingly. The closing costs are basically the same. The SBA packaging fee, that's basically our loan fee. SBA says we can't charge a loan fee, but we typically charge a packaging fee. That's for us to do the underwriting and all the work. Since the loan would be under $1 million, you would have no guarantee fee. So you come in with less money, you have a longer term loan by another 5 years and it's fully amortizing. So your payment's less, even though your rate is higher. So it allows you to kick out that term a little longer so you don't have to pay as much every month. So what a successful loan application looks like. Having a business plan is always helpful. It's not required by SBA. It's not always required by Summit either, but it can be very helpful. The SBDC is a great place to go with assistance with creating your business plan. The most important piece is projections with supportive data. So we need 24 months of month-by-month projections. That's the main thing that we would underwrite to a majority of the time. And then usually we want some bullet points of how are you going to hit your projections, why you're projecting what you're projecting. Anyone can say they're going to make $1 million. How are you going to make $1 million? Use of funds. We need to know what you're going to use the money for. SBA does require us, as we're dispersing loan funds, that we have to track every penny. So we control the funds just to make sure it's spent accordingly. It's not, here's $1 million, go spend it and start your business. It's, where's the invoice? We'll pay the invoice. You paid the invoice already? We'll reimburse the business, stuff like that. The equity, again, we have to track that. So we get bank statements. It's like getting a mortgage. We show where the money is, track it, and then show it coming in at closing. Personal financials, we get 3 years personal tax returns on the individual starting the business or buying the business or owners of the business, as well as a personal financial statement. And then a resume with explained experience. That's very helpful for startups. Basically, what have you done before that helps you start, like that'll help you run this business well? The example I like to use is if a doctor's been a doctor for 20 years and all of a sudden is going to quit their job and start a restaurant, that doesn't make sense. Why are you doing that? But if it's someone that's ran a restaurant for 20 years and now they want to start their own, they're a chef, makes sense, right? So kind of, does this make sense is the best way to think about it. One thing with loans also is SBA requires anyone with 20% or more ownership has to be a full guarantor on the loan. We can also request spouses to be guarantors. We can do that a little bit more if you want. Up to you guys. Types of businesses. So most types of businesses are acceptable for SBA financing. There are some ineligible businesses. For example, passive investment real estate, we can't do, but Scott could totally help you with that. Any business that's involved in lending activities can't really touch. So we can't do like mortgage companies or anything like that. Seems like we can do pawn shops. I've never come across one. Businesses that do have gambling income, we can help, but they can only have up to 33% of the revenues from gambling activities. So unfortunately, we can't help casinos, but we can help restaurants that do have like the Oregon lottery in their establishments, as long as they're not making more than 33% of the revenues from those gambling activities.
Would you share that again? Particularly regarding restaurants.
Yeah, so typically restaurants have Oregon lottery machines, right? So we helped one down in Crestwell where they had a few machines. The requirement is you can't have more than 33% of their revenues from Oregon lottery, basically. So it's possible. It's just SBA doesn't want to finance, casinos, basically. It is a small business loan, so we can't help nonprofits, unfortunately. And also, they have to be located in the U.S. and owned a majority by U.S. citizens. That's at least 51% ownership by U.S. citizens or legal permanent residents. So some eligible use of proceeds, pretty much any business uses, so working capital, equipment, TIs, real estate. We can do one loan with blended uses. So if you're starting a business and you need working capital, equipment, and TIs in a rental space, we can finance all that with one loan. It's not going to be 3 separate loans. And again, we track the money to make sure you spend it accordingly. If you say you're going to spend 100,000 on TIs, but it ends up being more, totally fine. It happens. You know, we don't expect everyone to stay exactly to their startup budget. It doesn't always happen. I don't think it's ever happened. We can do debt refinances. There are some criteria that needs to be hit, but a good example is a line of credit that you no longer need and it has an outstanding balance, but you don't have the cash to pay it off in full. We can refinance that. Some other examples are like loans not on reasonable terms. So like if an equipment loan is on like a 3-year term, we can refinance that over 10 years because SBA deems that quote unquote unreasonable. Anything with a balloon payment, we can refinance. We can finance a complete change of ownership as either a stock or an asset purchase. The new one this year, as of August 1st, the SBA now allows for partner buy-ins, which is pretty cool. Haven't done one yet. No one's done one yet that I'm aware of, but hopefully someday we get to try one. Startup businesses, very common since COVID. A lot of people either got laid off or quit their jobs and started their own thing. And then we can also finance franchises as well.
What about, buying out a partner? So the other way around?
Yeah, so
Same thing?
if you and I own a business 50-50,
Yeah.
but I want to retire, we can
With
finance,
the loan.
we can finance that piece as well. So partner buyouts as well.
I thought so, I was fine.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah. So I got a few examples for you guys. So this is an example of a client we have in Bend that we helped buy their real estate a few years ago and do improvements, but they had their lines of credit with US Bank that they no longer wanted. So we refinanced those completely with the closing costs. So they had to come to closing with nothing, and then we just refinanced everything over 10 years. No prepayment penalty on those, which is really nice, so people can pay it off faster if they want. This is an example of a business acquisition. It was an asset purchase. The borrower came in with 5% down, which is the bare minimum. But in order to hit there's a 10% equity requirement that SBA typically has for business acquisitions or startups. And that's like cash into the deal. One way to kind of get around it with business acquisitions is if the seller is willing to carry a note for another 5% of the purchase price, SBA, and then that note is on full standby for the life of the SBA loan. SBA says that counts as equity. So you hit your 10% equity there, but they really only came in with 5 cash. And then we finance the rest as well as the seller finance a portion of it. We also gave them some working capital as part of the transaction. That way they had money to start operating right away because they spent a good portion of it on their equity injection. Here's an example of a startup. This is actually a franchise up in Vancouver. It's the second location we did for these guys. It's a indoor golf simulator business. So yeah, we financed the simulators, the leasehold improvements, furniture, fixtures, working capital, all in one loan. Since a lot of it was TIs, we had 9 months interest only on the front end, and then it rolled into 10 years of P&I. So it gave them time to draw out the money without having to make the full payments right away. Yes.
Can you explain what a TI is?
Tenant improvements, sorry. So leasehold improvements. So if you're leasing a space, but you need to redo it to fit your business, we can finance that. And typically it doesn't have any collateral value per se, so it's hard sometimes for conventional lenders to do it, which is where the SBA guarantee kicks in. And then the last one was a business that is a dog boarding and like groomers, sorry. They bought a piece of real estate, they made some improvements to it, we helped finance both pieces of it. We gave them some interest only on the front end to do the improvements, and then they actually didn't end up using the full 60,000 that we allocated to it, so we just decreased our loan amount, and then the P&I payment started. I think this is the last slide. So this is our SBA group email, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. It goes to the whole group. Someone typically gets back to you in 24 hours. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. That's pretty much all I have. Yes.
So it's probably a question for either of you. That slide you had, a successful application, you got this, and this. I would imagine that folks rarely walk into your offices with all those documents ready to go, right? So what does that process look like for helping someone through? Do you send them to the SBDC? Do you have people on staff to help walk them through that process?
Yeah, so typically, I mean, at least for us, Scott, I'll let you answer your piece. We meet with someone before we even send them the list of items we need to get started. So typically we would talk with someone and be like, all right, what do you want to do? What is your related experience? Here's kind of the terms a loan will look like. Here's a list of items we would need, but we send them an email and highlight kind of the most important, like the financial pieces. When it comes to like creating projections, if it's an existing business, I recommend using the historicals to help kind of as your starting point and then go from there. The SBDC is a great resource as well with creating those. So, I mean, for us, at least at Summit, you work directly with us, the SBA team. So we handhold you through the whole process pretty much. So that's at least on our end.
Yeah, I would, it's very similar with us. I would say we provide the list of things that we would need to get started. And then typically that breeds a lot more questions throughout the process. And so we usually try to gather everything at the start, do our work on the back end, and then meet with you again to say, hey, here's what else we need to kind of take this to the next step.
I'd say, yeah, most of the time it's best, at least we try to, once we have a full package, we try to get an answer to you within a week of like, yes, we can do it, or no, we can't. Because we don't want to drag it out if we knew we couldn't do the project for you. It's not fair to you. Typically, if it's something we can't assist with, I try to send you to some other resources that might be able to help. Craft 3 and Community Lending Works are CDFIs, they're community development financial institutions. They're nonprofits, they're both good resources, as well as potential financing options. Yes.
So besides all those things you listed that would disqualify a business, what other things do you see or reasons do you see that you can't help them?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on the project, but usually it's cash flow is a big thing. We are cash flow lenders, not collateral lenders. So as long as the business can service the debt either historically or on a projected basis, as long as the projections make sense. Like there's an individual in Bend I've been working with. He's been trying to find a business to buy. I've looked at 2 with them, and neither of them really worked because the cash flow of the business wasn't very good. Or one, it deteriorated a lot this past year. So I was like, hey, like this looks like the business isn't doing well. Try to advise him on that. And this past one, he wasn't able to live off of the business. Like it wasn't making enough money to pay his bills as well. So there's kind of the main thing I would say is cash flow is the most important. Yeah.
Providing you qualified for both the SBA and conventional lending, why wouldn't they go with you as opposed to a conventional lender?
So like why would they pick me over conventional?
Why wouldn't they always go to you as opposed to a conventional lender?
Scott, you might be able to answer that. That's more conventional, right?
I mean, the things I typically see is typically the SBA financing is just a little bit more expensive. There's a few more fees involved. Now they can wrap the fees into the loan, typically, so that it limits the down payment and money you need up front. But it can typically be a little bit more expensive. And then, as he mentioned, the rate is typically a little bit higher because it's a riskier loan. It's a lot higher loan amount. Those types
But
of
you're also paying for a guarantee, right? The government guarantee. So that fee can be offset by knowing that you've got the federal government backing you up, so right?
Yeah. That's on their loan. Yeah, that's more for the bank's security is the government guarantee. So if the loan goes bad, we go to the federal government and be like, hey, we did our job. We liquidated all the collateral. There's still $100,000 outstanding. Pay us that 75% guarantee. They check it, be like, yep, here's your 75,000. And then the bank eats the remaining 25% or 25,000. But then you, the borrower, would work with the federal government to pay back the full 100,000.
Got it.
So it's more for the bank's benefit than yours per se. Does that answer your question? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to answer it, a lot of times people will go with conventional over SBA because it's faster. SBA can take months.
Yeah, well, and if you have a relationship already with the banker, right, with your business, right?
That's another good reason.
Yeah, and it does take longer, especially if the government shut down. That screws us up because we've had that happen. Yeah,
Good point.
if the government shut down, it's a hassle. We can't do anything. Yeah.
On that same vein, what's the quickest one you've ever closed and what's the longest one you've ever closed?
That's a good question. Trying to think. Actually, that line of credit refinance one took me a little more than a month. Summit Bank, we just became a preferred lender processor, so we can act on behalf of SBA to pull a loan number. So typically what the process is like, you underwrite the loan like the bank does, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks, you get approved by the bank. A week after that, so like a month for bank approval typically. Then if there's any third-party reports you have to do, like if it's a business value or business acquisition, you have to do a third-party business valuation, which takes 2 weeks, and then you submit to the SBA, and if you have to actually submit it, it goes to a queue, and hopefully someone picks it up soon. I've had ones that have been approved by someone at the SBA in 3 days. I've had ones where it's taken over a month. So it's literally like, you have no idea how long it's gonna take the SBA to approve it. And then it's another few weeks to get your loan documents pulled together. So if you're submitting to the SBA, it takes 2 to 3 months typically, but being a preferred lender processor, it cuts out that whole waiting on SBA to approve it. Recently, they changed it where, they do some background verification on their end, and it takes a few days to get the loan number, but it's still faster than sending it in. So you can do it in a month and a half, 2 months now. Again, kind of depends on real estate, if you need to get an appraisal and environmental, all that fun stuff. So yes.
So you said the maximum, that's the SBA's maximum. Does Summit Bank have a minimum? And does Summit Bank have a minimum for being a preferred lender, or can you just do 5 million on your own? Or does that need SBA?
I did one earlier this year that was 5 million on my own, that we were preferred, and that was a business acquisition, and it took like 2 months to do. The minimum typically for us, our underwriting process is the same regardless of dollar amount, so 5 million or 5,000. So our kind of threshold typically is around 100,000 is what we'll really kind of get involved, because less than that, there's better options like Craft 3 and Community Lending Works, who are faster than we would be. Instead of taking 2 months, they'd be a month probably. So
Who was that?
Craft 3 and Community Lending Works. Community Lending Works is based here in Springfield. Craft 3, they lend throughout. Yeah, they lend throughout Oregon, right? Community Lending Works does. Craft 3 is a little bigger. They lend throughout Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, I believe. They're both good resources.
Well, there's other people that do some independent stuff too.
Yeah, Northwest down the street.
Yeah,
But that's.
like right here in this room, so you guys, you know.
Yeah, and again, we're just an option. We try to provide as many options as possible when we talk with someone. Like if someone has a lot of equity in their house, maybe a HELOC is a better option because it's a lot cheaper than we are. So it's kind of looking at all the possible financing options that you have when you're looking to do your project. Yes.
But if you have a HELOC, they can shut it down anytime you want, so it's, conventional.
Well, I think that's gonna be one too.
No.
How many preferred lenders for SBA loans are in the local area?
We're the only one based in Eugene. Like the whole team is based in Eugene, and we lend throughout the state. So I mean, we have Summit has offices in Bend. We're gonna open one in Redmond in March, and then we have 2 in Portland. So that's kind of our main hotspots. But like I said, we've done one in Vancouver before. I've done one in Wisconsin for some people that we knew. That one was really interesting. I fly out every year to go visit them. But preferred lenders, I mean, I think most of the large banks are preferred lenders. It's just, you want to make sure you're talking to the right person that will give you the right information. Because some of the larger institutions, their SBA team might be housed in Sacramento or Denver. Like they're kind of, every bank has a different setup. We're unique. We're our own team and you work directly with us. Some other banks, it's you work with someone at your local office and then they go to someone at the SBA department to make sure they follow all the rules right, kind of thing. So just make sure you're getting the right information, I would say, depending on who you're working with.
Roger, does the SBDC have that information that can help direct somebody to
Yeah,
local lenders?
Actually in my, I teach business plan. Like, I miss working with you guys right now. So in one of my classes, I actually go through all those, and then I also, community lending works, the economic development loan fund, CRAP 3, community, and then I also talk about alcohol, the county government. Then I also talk about, which a lot of people don't pay attention, is the city of Eugene, which they also loan money on grants. If you are renting a place and you want to completely change your facade for appearance or signage, you don't go there for $500. You want to change the whole out front, they have a loan fund for that. Yeah, so all those things, I go through it with them, you don't want to say, hey, I just want to change my flower market sign, that's $1,000, they say, no, thank you. But you want to change the whole thing to make downtown Eugene, it looks very nice. There's a fund for that. And Springfield?
Joel, actually, to answer that question, I think that's through the Main Street Fund, which is Oregon-wide, and they provide grants to local folks. I know SRDC is looking into how they can be a partner for that. So if there's ever money grant available, the chamber will make sure we put out information to people.
Especially right here in the Washburn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any last questions? All right, a round of applause for both Tammy. Okay, well, thank you guys. So again, these are quarterly programs. This is the last one of the year. We'll pick them back up first quarter of next year, but you can always visit our digital hub. We'll be sure to send out a copy of the recording of these presentations, and those live in our library on the Small Business Solutions Hub webpage too. If you ever need to go back and reference them, or if you want to share them out to folks, please go check that out. In the meantime, I think we got a lot of food left, so feel free to hang out and stick around. Thank you all for being here today.
Thanks, baby.